As you saw earlier, the protests in Spain are back, the euro crisis rolls on unabated, and the US is still heading for the fiscal cliff of tax rises and spending cuts in January. So what to do? Well, Dr. Vito Tanzi is a world authority on fiscal policy and author of the book Government versus Markets. He's a former IMF director, Italian finance minister, and I think we can say economic hawk, and he joins me now. Dr. Tanzi, welcome to the programme.
Well,
now, the market is expecting a lot more quantitative easing around the world at the moment. But you worry a lot, I think, about national public debt. Just how high is national debt in some of these developed countries?
well, in some countries, it is extremely high in Japan, probably world record now. It is very high in Greece, it's growing up dramatically. It's very high in the US now. It has exceeded 100%. It's,
of GDP?
Of GDP. It's very high in the UK, which is, it has doubled in 5 years, reaching about 90%. And it is quite high in Italy, about 122%. And it's very high in various other countries. We have never had levels of debt of this.
So if I ask you, as both an economist and an economic historian, if we go out 20 years from now, you and I, and we look back on the euro crisis, what is the lesson that you would point to?
I think we would react by being amazed that we let the situation get as bad as we did, And people think that it's all the problem of the crisis, of the 2008 crisis. But actually the problem were visible much before. In 2003, in August 2003, I wrote a column in the Financial Times. They published it, called The Coming Fiscal Crisis. And I could see the problems coming. The US were cutting taxes, but increasing spending. The Italians were taking advantage of the European Monetary Union that had lower interest rate to use the extra space to spend more and so forth.
When I've seen you, when you get asked about what can be done now, what would you do with Spain, Italy and Greece, you've often said it's like asking an Irishman the way in Ireland, and you wouldn't start from here. But does this mean this is a problem that is impossible to solve now?
Problems in economics are never totally impossible to solve. Somehow they always solve themselves one way or another. Sometimes in a nice way, some other times in a less nice way. I think that, if one wants to be an optimist, one will have to come to the conclusion that maybe if we finally are facing a situation where we know we have to do something about the role of the state in the economy. The role of the state, especially public spending, was pushed to a level which became unsustainable. There were not enough taxes. Then when the taxes were not enough, we started borrowing. When the borrowing was not enough, we started pushing the Germans to subsidize the others. And so that probably, if the crisis may provide an opportunity to begin to do some changes, and it's already the beginning of that.
But that issue is the pace of change, I guess, and when you look at...
the pace of change, clearly, you cannot change overnight. You can not go to dismantle a welfare state overnight, but you can begin to eliminate people at the margin. Lots of people have worked their way into the welfare state when they should not have. For example, people who are getting pensions, for disability when they are not in fact disabled. In Washington, I always tell the story that in Montgomery County, where I live, 50% of the policemen were retiring on pension with 70% of the salary tax-free, with excuses that they had sore back or sore elbow and things like this. So the concept of disability had changed dramatically.
So that you need incremental change back again. But what about when you get a situation like in Greece at the moment, where you have, say, 50% youth unemployed, and you've got this austerity coming down, crashing down on the country?
Well, what is the option? I mean, if the Greek have the way of spending more, they should spend more by all means. But if they can only spend other people's money, I mean, the Greeks are in the situation they are now because they pushed spending much above what they could have afforded in the last, if you look at the statistics of Greece in the past 10 years, you find out that the salary of public employees went up 200%.
But you say that if the Greeks have money, they should spend money. Now,
Yeah.
as a former director of the IMF, how do you, I mean, you left a while ago, but how do you see Christine Lagarde now she has raised all this money, and the IMF are actually looking, if anything, at helping the quantitative easing side of things. They're not into austerity, really. What do you make of their strategy?
Well, austerity, austerity should never be pushed beyond the level where it's necessary. And austerity becomes necessary when you can no longer borrow money. In order for you to spend money, either you must have your own money or somebody must be willing to lend you money. Yeah. If nobody lends you money anymore, then you have no choice. No? And this is really essentially the case of Greece.
We'll see how much more lending to the IMF happens. Dr. Vito Tanzi, thank you very much.
I don't think the IMF will put much more money than that. I would be very surprised.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Vito Tanzi, thank you for joining us.
Pleasure. Thank you.